Welcome back to this tutorial. Now that we have all of our photos loaded into Photoshop, let's make sure the photos are aligned. We can do this by selecting all of the photos, going up to Edit, and then clicking on Auto Align Layers. Make sure Auto is selected, then click OK. It takes a few seconds. Now that the photos are aligned, let's go over to the Layers panel and select photos 2 through 9. Change the blending mode to light. Turn off all of these layers and select photo 2. Go down here and create a mask. Hit Ctrl-I or Command-I for Mac to invert the mask. Select the brush tool and make sure the hardness is set to 0. Make sure the layer mask is selected, and we can start painting in the grille. We're just painting in the grille, headlights, and underneath the front. Side note, when using the brush tool on a layer mask, white adds and black removes. Hit X to switch between them. Let's paint in some of the body to brighten it up a little. I'm just going over everything to make sure we got what we wanted painted in. Drop the brush opacity down to 15%, and we're going to start painting in some of the windows so it blends a little better. Let's make sure we painted in everything by hitting the backslash button. This looks pretty good. Let's move on to the next photo. In this photo, we want the front tire, so let's create a layer mask and bring our brush opacity back to 100%. Now just start painting in the front tire. Let's turn the layer opacity down some. This looks good. Change the brush opacity to 15% and let's paint in some of the front fender. This is good. In this photo, we want some more highlights on the grille and around the headlights. Go up here and change the brush opacity back to 100%. Let's start painting in some more highlights on the grille area to bring out the details. And some highlights around the headlights. And let's paint some down here. That should do it. Let's drop down the brush opacity some and paint in the driver's tire a little bit. We don't want too much, just enough to see more details on the tread. Paint some more around here. This looks good. Now let's go over here and adjust the opacity of this layer. We don't want it too bright, so let's bring it down to around 68. In this photo, we want the highlights around the headlights. Let's start by creating the layer mask and invert it. Then go up here and change your brush settings back to 100%. Now we start painting in around the fog lights and headlights. We want this for when we Photoshop the headlights on. It makes it more believable. Maybe some on the emblem and grille area. We added too much around the headlight, so let's zoom in and fix it. Let's remove this highlight at the top and from the headlight itself. We have a better photo of the light, so let's just remove it. Next, go over here and bring down the opacity. Not too much, just enough to see the details. Let's go up here and bring down the opacity of the brush. We want to remove some more of this highlight by the light. That looks pretty good. Now let's go to the next layer. In this photo, we want the lights on the ground, so let's create a layer mask and invert it. Go up here and change the brush opacity to 100%. Let's start here around the passenger tire and paint in some light. Paint the whole ground in and go over it to make sure you have everything. Looks like I painted in myself. Let's go ahead and remove that. It's looking pretty good. It's a little too bright, so let's bring down the opacity. In this photo, we are going to do the same thing. Let's create a layer mask and invert it. Just start painting in some more lights on the foreground area. Make sure you paint enough light in. This area looks too bright, so let's remove some of it. That looks better. Let's go back to this layer and go up here and bring down your brush opacity. Now start blending in the lights, making the light fall off around the tire and going off at an angle. This is starting to look pretty good. I'm just going back and making some more adjustments, making it blend a little better. Going back to here and making adjustments. And this should be good. Alright, next is the fog lights. Create a layer mask and invert it. Change your brush opacity to 100% and start painting in the fog lights. Paint in the headlights too. And change the blending mode to screen. In this photo, we are just going to paint in the headlights. First, create a layer mask and invert it. Now let's zoom in here and get started. We just want this part painted in. I don't like the little flare right here, so let's remove it. Now let's go over to the other light and paint it in. This is looking pretty good. Just paint some more light in here. And that should be it. Alright, that is it for this video. I will see you in the next one.